stream here. Yeah, so I've set this up on my Mac, so I wasn't able to get the camera set up in time for today. I was hoping to have plenty of time before I started this, but like I said, we were just working with a school to finish off a project that we'd started, and of course, they're more important than everybody, so they're all sorted. So a little bit delayed, but we're here now. So yes, you won't be able to see my face, so I'm sorry about that, but you will be able to hear me. Now this one is a session on Final Cut. Now, this was a request from a couple of teachers, mainly, obviously, Mac teachers that have Macs at their school. So we've done quite a few sessions on video editing. I might just switch into Final Cut now so you can kind of see where we're at. I'm just going to go down here and I'll just maximize the screen a little bit. And I'm working off one monitor today because I've only got the one monitor for my Mac. So again, I'm just going to be kind of looking all over the shop to make sure we're doing okay. So let me know that everything's coming through all right. I haven't used my recording gear on the Mac yet, so I haven't used the mic yet, so it's hooked up. So hopefully it's going okay. But I might just unpause and make sure I can hear myself. Yep, cool. I can hear myself. That is good. Excellent. All right. So yes, you won't be able to see me today because I hadn't set up the cameras just as yet. I was hoping to have time, but I didn't. So enough excuses from me. So Final Cut. I'm just going to move across here. I'm just going to try and leave chat in the back corner so I can see what's going on. So Final Cut is a video editing program for Mac. I'm just going to go and do a new project up here. We've had a few sessions, obviously, on video editing. We've done Premiere Pro, which is through Adobe, probably one of the most used packages, mainly because it's on Mac and PC, whereas Final Cut is only on Mac. So it's a Mac-only package, therefore the only people that are going to use it are people that have access to a Mac, be it a MacBook or an iMac or something like that. Of course, there is also Imovie, which is also on the Mac and on the iPad. Quite a lot more powerful than Imovie Final Cut, obviously, but it does link into it too. So if you do have students that have iPads and they're doing stuff in iMovie, they can export those settings into Final Cut and do a little bit more work with them as well. So yes, video editing on the Mac. Now, if you ask me what I prefer to use, I will probably say I prefer to use Final Cut. I find it's cleaner, it's easier to use. Look, it probably has less functions and less options than Premiere, but I don't use 90% of Premiere. So I find that what I need in Final Cut is just there, and it works really, really well. And also, if you watched our Premiere Pro video that we're running, it can be a little bit buggy. Premiere Pro does happen to crash a lot. I don't think I've ever got a crash out of Final Cut. So I do prefer to use it, but obviously you are limited by your equipment with this one because you do need a Mac. So Final Cut 10, there it is down there, or Final Cut Pro. It is a paid piece of software as well, just like Premiere. I think the difference is you don't need a subscription like you do with Premiere, so you buy it once and you have it forever. Apple are pretty good like that, so it's an Apple product, it's an Apple piece of software. So once you buy it once, you basically own it forever. In all the multiple upgrades that I've had Final Cut for probably 10 years now. I don't think I've ever paid a cent other than the original purchase price of the software. So it's got that going for it as well. So it's pretty cool in that regard. I'm just going to check chat really quick and make sure everything's going okay. Awesome. So if you have anything to say, please let me know in the chat on the side there. And like I said, there is about 20-second delay between your chat and me. So if I don't answer your question, it's probably because there is that short delay. So I'm just going to close down this window here just to save my bandwidth. We're doing okay. All right, so I'm just going to jump back into Final Cut. So when you start Final Cut, you can see it's pretty clean. I'm just going to do a new project. It's showing you all the other stuff from a previous project I've been working on in the background, so you can ignore all of that. You basically go into File, New, and then a new project. So there are options here. You've got a new library. A library is like a collection of materials. So you might have multiple libraries. I only use the one library, but some people might have libraries set up for different things that they're working in. They might have a library set up for video editing for school, another library set up for video editing for different projects, or you can have a whole project that's set up in a library as well. Oop, I can hear myself in the background, so I think I'm unmuted somewhere. So there we go. I'm just muted back there. All right. So now we're back here. So once you start a new project, okay, you're given these pretty basic options, which is good. Project name. I'll just call this one YouTube. In an event, we'll just leave it for the date. Starting type code, leave that at 0000. So that's just where it's going to start off in the the project there. And then there's your video format. So you have a few options here. It's giving you the standard formats around. Now, Final Cut is a 360 editable piece of software as well, so you can do 360 editing. I think we might even show some of that maybe at a later session if people have interest in doing that. I might show you how to edit, film and edit 360 video as well. I think I still have some from another project, so we can do that. Obviously, you can go all the way up to 8K in video quality at the moment. That's massive in sizes, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to stick at 1080p. And that's the resolution for 1080p. It's pretty basic there. And your frame rate. This will all depend on what kind of media you're using. So with use automatic settings, what will happen there is it'll say basically it'll set all of your settings based upon the first video clip that you drop in there. So if you're going to edit a video that's 1080p and it's running at 23 frames a second and you drop that in, the actual project will automatically update to be those settings. Or if you're dropping in a 4K clip at 60 frames a second, it'll do that as well. So hopefully what you're going to see, especially if you watch the Premiere video, is Final Cut is just easier, right? Like it just seems more straightforward. And it's not that it's not as powerful. I find that what's happening is it's doing a lot under the hood that you don't see. It's very, Robbie will hate this, but it's very Apple-like in its function. Like everything is kind of under the hood, right? Like things just happen and they just work and you don't have to stress too much about them, which is why I like it. So I'm going to probably just do a bit of I'll do a standard 1080p video. And I might just pump it up to 30 frames. Your frame rate, those kind of things, that's getting into more, I guess, media. We can have a chat about that at another time. But most stuff that you film, if you're filming on your phone, which I'm going to say is probably 90% of what people film these days, you're probably looking at a 1080p resolution if you haven't changed the settings by default. You know, iPhones can film up to 4K now. And your frame rate is probably going to be at a 30 frame a second or even 60 frames a second as well. And we can talk about frames a little bit later. And then there's your audio. And again, because we're probably using phone settings here, you're just going to be having stereo. So I'm going to hit create. And there we go. So this is Final Cut. Now I'll show you around the place. It's a little bit different to Premiere. You'll see it's a dark interface as well. Most video editing programs are a dark interface, you know, because you're doing video editing in a dark room because of color grading. You want to make sure that, you know, what you see, the color that you see up there is, oh, look at that little plug. The color that you see up there is the color that you want. So you don't want to have these bright colors around the screen to do that. So what we have over here is we have our collections. So if I go down here, you can see this is where all our projects lie. It's pretty much a collection of all of our stuff. I haven't been doing much down here, obviously, so there's not much there. Then you have your media library here. You're going to see lots of missing files, right? So just like we talked about in Premiere, this media library, unless you say otherwise, is linking to media that you have in your on your computer. Okay, so you drag and drop stuff in here, and what it's doing is it's linking to where that is sitting on your computer. So if you have a folder called, you know, video editing, and you have video clips and photos and those kind of things, and if you drag them into this space here, it won't copy them into another folder, it just links to them. All right, so you'll notice here that I'm missing some files because I obviously had some files that I dragged in here that I was using for a project, and then I deleted those original files. I didn't need them anymore, so it can't find them anymore. So that's why they're not showing up here. So this isn't like a copy of all your project files. It is just another basically a reference or a linking point to those files. So you can see they're missing there. Sometimes you'll see the shortcut, like the thumbnail for it. Other times you won't. So you can right click and you can find them if you want to. You can try and find where that media is if you've like moved it, or you can kind of relink it as well. All right, so that's your media library there. I've got audio, I've got video, I've got pretty much everything I've just thrown in this area here. You can change this to, you know, favorite scenes or rejected scenes, but we'll just leave it at that. Then what you have, let's go, I'll try and just leave it on an image. Okay, I'll just leave it on that for now. Then what you have over here is you're going to be your final project. So you can see down the bottom here, this is where I'm going to do all my editing. That's my timeline. And then up here, this is where your final video will be. Now, same as I mentioned in the Premiere editing video that we did the other day. I'm just going to quickly check chat. Sorry. Cool. We're all going good. That you have, this is a non-destructing video editing program, right? Non-destructive means that whatever I plonk in here, or whatever I put in this editing timeline down here, if I do cuts and changes and move stuff around, I'm not editing or deleting the original video footage. That always stays the same. It's just linking it, right? And so then what will happen at the end of this is I render my video out, and what that does is it applies all the changes I made and creates a new video. Okay, so you never destroy or wreck or edit your original video. You always just make changes and then make a new version of it. So that's your timeline down the bottom, pretty easy. This is where we'll see everything going on. And then up here, or down here on the right, this is where we have basically our settings for analyzing our video and our audio. Down the bottom here, we have all of our effects. Pretty simple. We have effects down here. These are all the inbuilt effects. I'll leave it on all. And then we have our transitions, okay? And there's all our transitions as well. And that's pretty much it, right? Like I said, it's very, very simple in terms of its layout and straight to the point. There is a lot more you can do if we head up here. If we go into our project up here, there's quite a lot more that you can start to play with if I start going into my preferences, right? But I'm not going to mess around too much with that because like I said, I use the bare basics. Even the preferences here, right? You can see there's not much, right? Everything is pretty basic, which is good because I just want to edit video. I don't need to do too much fancy stuff. So let's show you how I can do this. I've got some video on my desktop. Now, apologies, these are videos from basically me and Raf and our little kind of side little project we do. So what I'm going to do is, what have we got? Sanding. Okay, so they're just videos of me and Raf, so I'm just going to plonk them on. So I'm just going to drag it in here. So I can either drag it straight into my timeline here, okay, or I can drag it up here into this kind of media collection as well. I'm just going to put it straight into my timeline and drop it down there. And you should find by default, there it is there as well. It's plonked it up there too, okay? So that's linked to where that original file is. So I've just got that file on the desktop, okay? That's where that's linked to, all right? So if I do reveal in Finder, it shows it there on the desktop. Okay, so it hasn't copied it anywhere special. It's just linked it and put it in here. And so here is my video as well. If I go reveal in browser, okay, we can see it up here. All right, so there's my video dropped in there. You can see the frames, right? You can see it running through. You can see the audio down the bottom there. And we can see what's going on. So let's do the first thing that you probably do in Final Cut is zooming up. I'm just laughing at Raf. Zooming up and down, right? So I'm just zooming into my footage here. I'm just doing Command and plus. So I can start to see a little bit more in my timeline. Okay, so you can zoom pretty much all the way in. So now you can see individual frames. All right, so I've moved all the way. This is just a 56-second video clip. So I'll just move that out again. All the way in there. So yeah, you can actually see each individual frame of your video clip and start to edit those. All right, so you can do that. And if you're asking, this is Raf just sanding some work that we made for a business. So I don't know why he's wearing the mask. He does things. Cool. So that's that there. So I'm just going to zoom all the way back out again. Okay, so in terms of what we can do, first up, now if you've probably used any Apple device as well, like an iPhone or an iPad or anything like that, you'll find a lot of the design language is quite similar. You know, the yellow around the media clip knows that you can trim it by moving it back and forth, right? Pretty simple. If we have our audio here, I can change the audio on the fly as well. I can also right click and then detach that audio. And then it's a separate track, okay? Now again, much cleaner here. If I want to add layers to the video here, you'll notice it doesn't have like layer 1, 2, 3, 4 like Premiere does. It's just nice and clean. If I want to add a layer, I'm going to add my logo. So again, I use my Mac for my own personal video editing, which is why a lot of this stuff is here. So if I add my logo there, it just automatically is a new layer, okay? And you can actually see where it's attached to that bit of video. All right, so nice and simple as we go through. And no, I'm not trying to plug my business. It's just that this is my Mac and I only use it for my own personal stuff. So that's why I've got it on here. Okay, so let's have a little look here. The other things, of course, if I want to lengthen that clip out, I can just grab that yellow handle there. If you have trouble, just kind of zoom in a bit and I'm just going to move that across. All right, so now I've got that running a lot longer on the top there. Let's go into some editing first. So if you want to cut some of your clip out, it's pretty simple. I'll zoom back out again so we can see. I'm just going to hit the blade. So all your tools are actually up here. Again, nice and clean and out of the way. You can see why I like this, right? So you go to your blade. You can see there are my tools there. Go to my blade and just go cut, right? I've made 2 cuts and I'm just going to hit A to hit select. And there's that video file there. And if I want to delete it, I can just take it out, all right? Just going to undo, or I can just straight up delete it. And what it'll do when it deletes it, it leaves this kind of grey footage. So it's actually left the time that we had in there as well, just in case it doesn't want you to affect any of your other edits. So if you do want to then butt that up, you just kind of get rid of that grey. Okay. And now we're going straight between those 2 videos there. All right. So pretty simple. There's your editing, there's your cutting. And like I said, that cut hasn't affected the original video. The original video is still there and not affected. The cut here is just some cuts it's going to do to the video. All right. So I'll hit blade, and I'll cut that one out, and I might take it out. And you can see if you kind of pull the video out, I can also just dump it on there, and now it's sitting on top. And obviously we can't see the bottom video because it's the same size, so I might just plonk him over there. All right, so pretty easy to do your basic edits. All right, in that title bar, in that bar as well, you have your zoom to zoom in, trim to obviously trim back and forth your video, A to select, P to set your position, and your hand to kind of select and kind of move around the space. So I can kind of select and move around here as well. So I'll just go back to select. Okay, so that is your basics of editing, right? So pretty simple. Cut, and you can also, if you want to, you can do Command X to cut and then move it somewhere else, and then Command V to paste it, right? So you can do that as well, and then it'll automatically make a cut and plonk it in there. Okay, so pretty simple so far. So let's talk about editing some of the actual properties of the video. So I dumped my big dirty logo on my video there. So whenever you select anything, you'll see in this right panel over here, this is the controls for that element. So we can see here I'm in my video editing, video controls, video options, I guess, for that logo. So I'm going to do something pretty simple, and I'm just going to scale it down. Just get it out of the way. All right. And then I can use my X and Y over here, and I can kind of move this if I want to put it somewhere else. Or I can also just select this button here and then just manually move it and just kind of plonk it over there. All right, so that's pretty simple. Okay, so that's how you start to edit your actual layers. All right, so I can go in here as well if I wanted to. I can bring the scale of that video up. I can move it around. Now what you're seeing here as well, this is showing you the final clip, but it's going to be like a quickly rendered version of it. So it's quicker to play. So it just means that the quality that you see here isn't indicative of the actual quality when you export your video. Okay, this is just showing you a quick render so you can easily work and it doesn't slow your editing down. So I can hit play and it kind of plays straight away. All right, cool. So let me show you a couple of the options that you have. We'll go into sanding here. All right, so let's just say we want to do speed that up. You've got your clip options here. This is where you can fix your colors up. We can do some balance color. It automatically does it for you, which is lovely. I can retime. So here are your speed options. So we can increase it, we can decrease it, okay? If I just go to fast, say by 4, what it does is it just grabs a little handle there, and then you can see with that handle, by adjusting that, I can just adjust the speed. So I can make it slow, or I can bring it up, and I can speed it all the way up. Okay, so again, super simple. All right, and then back over here in this panel here, this is where we have all of our crops and transforms and those kind of things. So like Final Cut, you have a lot of options, but you drag those on the clip. Now again, I'm just going to check chat really quick. We're all going good. Let's head back. So if you want to make some effects and add some effects to your video clips, if you go into the effects panel in the bottom right there, okay, here are your effects panels. All right, and what you do is you drag those onto the clip. Now what I like about this is it'll actually show you a preview of it, look at that, before you even drag it in, right? So whatever effect that you want down here, it's going to actually apply that effect straight away. So you can actually see what it looks like before we put it on the clip itself, okay? Which is, I think, kind of very handy and very cool. All right, so let me just put H film. I'm just going to drag that, drop it onto that video clip, and there it is there. So it's applied that filter automatically. So unlike Premiere, where once you drag an effect on, you have to go and turn the thing on, this will automatically have that effect turned on in your kind of default settings. But if you scroll down on that video now, so you can see it's not selected, which is why I'm not seeing it here. Even though the playback is over that video, it has to be selected as well. Okay, so now you can see that age film effect. So I can turn that off if I want to. I can turn all effects off if I want to, but I can now go in and I can change that effect as well. So let's bring those scratches all the way up. Let's bring the dust up. It's a dirty video. Let's bring some hairs on there. That's kind of gross. We'll make the jitter. So you can just go a little bit nuts. Wow. And then we'll play that back. There we go. Right, we have it playing back in real time, which is super cool. So I'll just turn that off. I'll turn those effects off. All right, so that is that, right? Like, it's pretty simple. Just drag and drop your stuff on and see how it works. So I actually quite like that effect as well. So I've just dragged on a bloke off effect there. Cool. So there's our video starting to come into play, right? So hopefully you're seeing, and I know I've said it a lot, how just easy Final Cut is to work with, right? As opposed to, say, Premiere. It's just everything is cut down visually, I think, anyway, to what you need, and not any fat on there as well. In terms of effects, again, there's not as many here as there is in Premiere. Not as many transitions as there is in Premiere. But what you can do is you can add as many as you want. There's lots of third-party effects that you can simply add in, which I kind of like. You know, the whole price of the package is a lot cheaper than Premiere, but if there's some very specific effects that you need, you can purchase those separately. And then just you have them as part of your Final Cut package, which is pretty good. I've never purchased anything for Final Cut. I've always just made do with what was there, and it always works for me. If you do make any changes down here as well, so let's just say you dropped a couple of effects on, you tweaked them down here, you really liked what it looked like, you can save that as a preset and then have a new preset here. So you just drag and drop that on instead of having to go through and add all of your changes. So again, super easy. All right, so that's your effects. Let's go to our transitions. Again, super simple. All right, so my transitions, I just, again, select my transition. We'll do a simple cross resolve and drop it on there. I'll zoom in. And now we have our simple transition, right? Now you notice a little bit jittery there, okay? So again, what's happening is, it'll be better that time. There we go. So my computer, you can see my CPU starting to kind of drive up a little bit there. So what's happening is obviously when I drop these effects on, it's doing a quick render so you can kind of see how that's going to look. Okay, so whenever you drop an effect on, depending on how powerful your Mac is, what have I got? I've just got a little Mac Mini, which is more than enough for me, and that does the job, right? But the more powerful the Mac, the quicker this will be, and the higher video rate you can work with as well. So once it's on there, if I want to change that transition, I might want to make it a bit shorter. I can do that. It shows you straight away what it's going to look like, and there's my transition there. If I don't like that transition, I can just drag another one over it, and it'll ask you if you want to replace it. It should do it by default, and then we kind of replace that with a little bloom there as well. So I can play that back. We now have our bloom. All right, so pretty simple. And of course you have a whole bunch of effects to play with, and you can do those. And look, they're mostly pretty cool. There's some very, I don't know, I guess silly ones, like, which one do I use? Earthquake, right? So you do have stuff like this. It's pointless, but it's cool. Where I can then just do this. I'll actually increase that up so you can see that actually happening. And the little smoke effects come up. So very pointless, right? But, it's kind of a cool, simple little effect. And I think your students will really dig Final Cut because it can do a lot and it's really simple. Okay, so there's all our transitions as we go through, and you can see how you can add those. All right, let's show you a couple of other things as well. So I'll just go back. I'm just going to move back across. Let's just go to another bit of video footage. Let's go to the start here. All right, so some other things you have. Obviously, you've got your transform controls we talked about. We talked about cropping and all those kind of things as well. You do have a few built-in controls like stabilization. So tap on that. And again, it'll automatically do that. You'll see the little dots appear across here. That means it's kind of like looking at that clip, it's rendering it, it's working on it, so it's applying that effect. Once those white dots are gone, you know that it's kind of applied that effect to your video. So doing stuff like stabilization will probably take a little bit of time, a couple of minutes of crunching to make sure that works. I'm just going to turn it off because I don't really need to use it. So you can do your stabilization there. Again, it's all automatic, right? It's all behind the scenes. You click the button and it works. Now, if I go over here, into my video options, okay? Now I can start to color correct. Now I won't go into color correction here because you could be here all day and I'm not a color corrector, but you can start to go through and start to kind of edit your colors. And again, just instant, right? Like on the fly, done. It's very, very cool. You can change your saturation, you can change your exposure. And again, you can save a preset once you're happy with that as well. All right, so we'll go back into here. And then finally, here's your info. This is just talking about that clip itself. It's talking about where it is, what it's about, the codecs it's used. All right, I'm just gonna head back to my video. All right, so we'll go into audio now. So if I select some audio, there we go. You can see that's changed a little bit. So now we're in the audio section down the bottom here. And what you have is, just like before, you have some real simple buttons that'll automatically do everything. If I hit on equalization, I can do that. I can change the audio to flat. Not that you can probably really hear this. If I hit this little magic wand here, it'll automatically analyze my video, and you can see it's automatically applied. I've been saying automatically a lot. A bunch of, I guess, cleanups to it. So it said, it's decreased the loudness. It's made it more uniform. I can go and remove the noise. All right. So it'll automatically scan. You can see they're working straight away. It'll automatically scan your video and try and make those corrections for you. If I play that back, I can hear this, but you probably can't. It'll automatically clean it up for you. And again, the autos are pretty good. Okay, so we've probably gone through most of it so far. What else? That's like I said, that's probably about it. So it's super easy to use. I think is the main takeaway I want everyone to get from that is just how easy Final Cut is to use. And you'll notice it hasn't crashed yet. So there we go. So there's our editing down there. I'm going to bring that back. So we're nearly done. Like I said, this is going to be a shorter video because I want people to kind of have a go at doing this. And I know my audience is not going to be as big because there's not as many Final Cut users out there. So once we're kind of happy with what we've got here with my edits, I've made some edits, I've done some transitions. Again, I might just quickly talk again about the layering here. I know I didn't spend too much time on that. So just like Premiere, you can add things as layers. So if I want to add, let's just grab this picture over here. Again, sorry, I keep plugging my stuff, but it's the only stuff I have on here. If I drag that, okay, you can see that little point of blue there. It's showing you where it's going to sit in that overlay. So I'm going to plonk it there, and now that's where it's going to sit. Okay, and it's another layer. I can obviously scale these things down, and I can move them around. Okay, so that's all fine as well. So pretty simple. Now the other thing this can do, just like Premiere, is you can keyframe as well. So you can animate layers that you put on here. So just if you didn't see the Premiere video, let me show you what I mean by keyframing. So there's my video clip. I'm going to put it over here. Okay, that little image. and then it stops at about after about 10 seconds. So over here in my position, you can see if I go to the side here, there's little pluses. Okay, this is to denote a keyframe. So I'm going to click on that, and it's added a keyframe. Okay, you can see the big yellow dot. Then I'm going to scrub the video across to here, and then I'm going to move it. Right, and you can see it's got a little path there. Right, that little red line. I'm going to move it over here, and it's automatically made a keyframe for that. So now when I scrub that back, you'll see it's following that path. Okay, so pretty simple. So I basically said at this point, I want my clip to be here. And at this point, I want my clip to be over here. And then it animates in between. So much so that if I go in the middle and I grab that and I kind of pull that up, you can see this lovely little arc, right? So now it's going to automatically kind of follow that arc, right? So this is what keyframing is. It automatically makes frames when you make changes, and then it does the tweening in between. So it does the in between. So if I might, over here, I might pull that all the way back down. Right, so now we can start to see how that works, right? You can, of course, you don't just have to move stuff. You can rotate stuff. You can change the scale if I wanted to. I can bring that down. All right, and again, it's setting keyframes for all of that. So as it goes through, it's going to do that. It's going to flip a screen between where I've got those frames. Okay, so you can animate any layer you put on here, and again, it's super simple. It's click, 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 and it's done. So you could do things like, have titles zoom in and titles zoom out. You could scale them up and scale them down so they look like they're coming in and coming out of the screen. So you can do that. Actually, speaking of titles, I didn't talk about that. So you can obviously add titles to this as well. So we'll add some text. The text is up here. So you can see in the top left. I didn't talk about this. The top left. This is your kind of media library. If you had your phone connected or something like that, it would appear here as well. Here is our text and our generators. Text is probably the main one we'll use here. So text comes up as titles. It's like a separate thing altogether. And again, there's a whole bunch of pre-built ones that just work really well. So you have your, your very basic title, right? Like let's just do, I think it's just, I literally think it is just called basic. Basic title. So I drag my title in, put it down, and you can see there, it's just another layer. So your title comes in as another layer. I can go in. You can see now I have options to change my title. If I go into the text here, and there's my formatting. So I'll just click on that. So then I can change my title to whatever I want. Right, and then I can change my font. And I can move it around if I want to. All right. I can increase the tracking. I can increase the size. I can also animate this too with keyframing. So I can make that come in and come off the screen and spin around and do whatever we want. So that's your text. And you can see here, it makes a separate layer for your text, which I think is really easy to work with because then you can decide to, I don't want that text there. I want it over here. So you just move the layer and away you go. So that's pretty easy. So there's your text. And you can see again, you got a whole bunch of different, oh man, let's do a Star Wars, right? Because why not? So you got a whole bunch of different text generators and you can use some of those too, right? So a whole bunch of effects in here, which are very easy, far away, they've called it. I guess that'll avoid getting sued. So a whole bunch of options in the text. And you can do some pretty fancy stuff, right? With these folds and stuff like that as well. So all of that is in there too. So that is it. So let's just say we've got, oh, that was fun. Let's do that. That was cool. That's going to make it look even better. A giant atmosphere. Let's do the Earth. I'm really excited now. All right, so I can have that kind of come up and spin across. And I think you can even change like the text, and I think you can even change stuff about like the Earth and those kind of crazy things as well. So here you're actually seeing a whole bunch more options here that I haven't even gone through in terms of material options and stuff like that. Like I said, there's a lot you can do, but I'm not going to dig into that kind of stuff. All right, so let's just say we're happy with this video is pretty cool, right? It's generally just product placement for me and my love for Robbie and the Earth. So if we're happy with this now, we're going to export it. Okay, so just like Premiere, all the cuts and changes that we made haven't affected our original video. If I go back to my original video on the desktop, here it is here. Nothing is changed, right? We haven't touched that. That hasn't been affected at all, okay? But we've made changes here. So if I go into Final Cut and hit basically save, it's saving it automatically. You'll find there is no save button here. It's a very Apple thing, right? Like it just works. If I close this down, it's left off exactly where I left it off, okay? The only way I can get rid of a project is by kind of physically going in and deleting it. So it's pretty much safe there. But if I'm happy with this, I basically want to render this video out. Okay, so I want to make a new video of this video. So I'm going to go into here. And I'm going to get my exporting options. Now, I might have some different exporting options here. I've got a Havoc 8K. So what I might do is I'll show you I'll show you the main way to do it. So we're happy with this video. We just go into File. And we go to Share. Compressor is another Apple program for compressing video formats. But I'm not going to use that. We'll just go Share. And you can see you've got a few options here. Okay, 1080p, 720p, 4K. So it's automatically going to apply certain effects, certain settings, sorry, to your video for its output. I'm going to hit 1080p. And even though it says Apple devices, it'll go anywhere, all right? They're just, I mean, they're probably being a bit up themselves there. But any device will take that. It's just a video format. So there's my video there. You can see the format it's going to use with MP4, and you can see the basic size of it, okay? So if we go into our settings, this is where you can change a few things. So faster and better, right? So again, you can see how simple this is, right? There's a lot under the hood there, but you just don't see it. What format you want it to be in, and then the resolution. So I can drop it down if I want to make it smaller, and then I hit next. Okay. If you want to add different settings, you can do that by adding in more exporting options. So they allow you to add more, but they don't have more to begin with, just to make things easier. So I have a few extra settings in there. But anyway, 1080p. I'm going to hit next. And where do you want it? I'm going to put it on the desktop, and we'll call it YouTube, and we'll hit save. And away it goes. So now it's rendering that video out. I can keep working on it if I want to. You'll see up here, this will start to show me a time of what it's doing. So now it's starting to share it, so it's rendering it out. So that's pretty quick, actually. Again, you can see my CPU starting to kick up a little bit there. I'm also running OBS, which is the streaming software I'm using at the moment, which is using up quite a bit of my power. So that's actually running pretty well. The other thing I think you notice is Final Cut is probably a lot more power efficient as well. Because it's designed for the Mac, it knows what hardware it's on. I just find it works better as opposed to Premiere. Not that I'm having to go at Premiere, but well, I am. So that'll render out, and that'll be a whole new video. So that is basically Final Cut. So I think you'll see that it is super simple to use, very user friendly, very hard to make a mistake. It's just undo, drag and drop. There's not too much here to bog you down. I think if you opened up Premiere, you would see that there's so much there it can kind of freak people out, whereas this is nice and clean and simple. Of course, there is a giant caveat is the way you say it, yeah, is that of course you need a Mac to run this piece of software. So if you've got a Mac, then I would say give it a go, see how you go. You do need to obviously purchase the software, but like I said at the start, once it's purchased, you never pay a cent again. You've got it forever. You don't need licenses, you don't need subscriptions, you just have it, and it works really, really well. So if you do have access to it, I would definitely recommend checking it out. I don't know. I think they do a trial. I'll have to double check that. I'm not sure if they do a trial, but if there is, I'm sure, check it out. And away you go. So that is it from me. Let me just make sure there are no questions. No, we're all good. Chat's always quiet. So quiet, chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. You can see it's still rendering away now. Like I said, my computer's doing about 10 things at once, so a lot of that power's been gone. So normally this would be rendered out, but I'm just going to keep padding. So thank you very much for watching, and please have a go at using Final Cut, and let me know what you think of it. If you do like it and like it more, let me just jump into here. I might just have a look at what's going on in our streams at the moment. So I'll do a plug while I'm waiting for that to export. Let me head back to here, and we'll just go to our channel. So for the rest of the week, what do we have on? Let's have a look. Oh yeah, cool. Tomorrow will be a good one. Tomorrow is all about podcasting. So that one is how to basically set up a very simple podcast stream. It's really easy, and so much so that it'll be ready in iTunes and people can subscribe to it in about 5 minutes. So I'm not going to go through the whole creating audio and editing and those kind of things. I'll do it just so you know how to create audio. But it's more going to be about how you can basically freely host, and then also have that content easily subscribed to. So you basically record your audio, you plonk it on Dropbox, you set up what's called JustCast, and then you have a stream that people can subscribe and find. So I think that might be a good one if you want to set up podcasts for your students over the next couple of weeks before they head back, or maybe students want to set up a podcast, or even when you're back at school, maybe you want to start a podcast that everyone can watch and listen into. So that's tomorrow. That'll be probably a quick one actually, because there's really not much to it. It's super simple. So I might spend a bit of time on audio editing, and then we'll do that. Then obviously for the last day, which will be Thursday, we've got our intermediate Illustrator masterclass. So that was one from last week. We'll follow on from that, and we're going to start to do a little bit more work in Illustrator, getting close to doing some final work that we're going to put into a laser cutter. And then The following week's content won't be shown up here. I'll probably explain that in our last video to make sure everyone knows, and I'll put a video up on here so people remember. But what we're doing from now on is all of our live videos will still be available and they'll still be live. All we're going to ask is that you just register for them through the Bendigo Tech School page. It just makes stuff easier for us in terms of logistics and stats and those kind of things. And when you do that, you'll have access to the live video. You'll have a private stream that you can watch, and a link that you can watch when it goes live, so you can ask questions. But if you don't do that, that's more than okay. It'll just mean that you won't watch the live video, and it'll be available for you to watch a week later, but it won't be live, and you won't hear me, my voice live. I don't know if that makes a difference. Maybe it does. I don't know. Cool. So we can see our video's being exported. So I'm just going to show that. There it is there, YouTube. And there is our amazing video. I'll get the audio down just in case it does play. Wow, look at that. What a stunning video. Brilliant. Cool. That's it. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to end this stream, and I might catch some of you tomorrow.